water's dark and dusty, so ride my people ride with your muskets aimed.
Alright, here we are. It's winter again. I got some time to make some fly tying videos, so I'm going to put up a few trout flies. First one we're going to talk about kind of the fly that I came up with after the S&M really took off. I figured, you know, everybody's fishing my fly now that was putting fish in the boat for me. I got to come up with something different. So I came up with this fly, the Lil Amigo. This one's an olive. We're going to tie it today. Again, like many Mayfly nymphs, you can tie this thing in a plethora of colors, even material combinations if you really want to. I'm going to kind of show you how I do it, and then, you know, hopefully you guys can go from there and tie it how you see fit for your fishery. So I use basically just a 1X 2 heavy nymph hook. There's a ton of them out there. This one's a mustad. S82390 Okay. Basically one I just picked up at the local Sportsman's Warehouse because my local fly shop was closed when I needed hooks. So all of them are about the same. The Tiemco 3769's good, but the key is I fish them short. I don't fish the longer, like the 3761 Tiemco. I like them short. And on all of them I fish a 3/32 copper bead. And thread for the olive pattern, I fish the 8/0 olive dun. Okay, so unlike the S&M, there's quite a few materials on this fly. So how you lay out your materials on any Mayfly is pretty important. You want to minimize the amount of passes you make up and down the hook, because one key to keeping your own Mayfly nymphs that you tie at home, you know, superior to what I think are commercially tied Mayfly nymphs, is keeping them trim. Most Mayflies, if you turn over a rock and you actually look at them, they're a lot thinner than the flies that you're seeing tied in the fly bends at any fly shop. So a lot of that has to do with minimizing the amount of materials and times that you go up and down the hook shank. And what I mean by that is every time you go down, back to tie in material, you're increasing the width of the body or the abdomen of that fly, and that bulks up the fly. So I try to lay in and minimize my passes with materials to down and up once. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to tie in a couple pheasant tail fibers. And one thing you can do, you know, if you buy these, they're commercially tied by Montana Fly Company. They're going to have 3 tails. And that's basically because most Mayfly nymphs have 3 tails. One thing that I started doing, and I actually started doing it just this last couple months, was tying in a few more than 3, because if you got 3, there inevitably 1 or 2 are going to break. So I tie in about 4 or 5. It doesn't add to the bulk of the fly too much, and it gives you a little leeway in case one breaks. And it, you know, for some reason, if I don't have a Mayfly nymph with tails on it, or if I just have one tail, it may just be me, but I start to lose faith in the fly. Next thing you're going to tie in is, if you notice, I just tacked that down. I didn't work my thread back to seal the whole deal. I just tacked it in with a few wraps. And again, this is going to help me minimize the amount of passes I make down that hook shank. Next thing I'm going to do is tie in some extra small olive wire. And now I'm going to work my pass down. One thing with wire too, make sure you tie that into the side of the hook shank, not the top. Okay, if you tie it into the top, you're not going to get that wider than taller profile with your Mayfly nymphs, which is so important if you look at any of the naturals. Next thing for this fly I'm going to tie in a turkey biot. I just use olive, but again, color palette, you can use whatever you want. And I take this, and I'm not the best Baetis fly tire, but I tie it in again right next to it, right next to the hook shank, and this is going to be my pass back up, stacking those thread wraps right next to each other. Okay, take this, trim those excess materials, and then I'm going to palmer this Baetis and really hope that it looks good and doesn't break. Because then I got to start the whole video over again. I think we're going to get lucky. There we go. About halfway up, 50-50. It's kind of what I say with any Mayfly nymph, meaning that the proportions are about 50-50. Trim it right there. Now I'm going to take this, and it's really hard to see. I don't think these small nymphs translate real well to film, but you're going to take this wire in the gaps between the ridges of the Baetis. You're going to palmer that small wire right in between them. Okay? And the wire is about the same color as the Baetis. Now, you could use a copper. You could use many different colors to give it kind of a different color palette. But for this pattern, I found, that matching the color of the Baetis with the wire serves it best. And that the wire's in there for durability. Okay, it's not in there for any look or anything like that. Next thing, I'm going to add a thin piece of flash, because this is going to have a little flashback. Just add it right there. Okay. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a wing case. And kind of my thing, I always use goose Baetis for wing cases. I think they look good, they're easy, they're trim, they're flat. And for this pattern, I'm going to use the cupped side of the Baetis. Okay, this side's what I would call the flat side. I'm going to use the cup side, and I'm going to face that cup side down. And I'll show you why here when we get to it. Just tie it in right on top. Trim it off. Then for dubbing, I use some of the dark olive Franken dub. But realistically, any kind of dry fly or Antron based dubbing will work. Something you can really pack down and keep thin. Again, I try to just match really with that middle, where you call the abdomen. Match the diameter of the back of the fly. One thing with dubbing on nymphs is less is more, 9 times out of 10, and I'll always get in there and kind of trim it up. These are not flies that I want to be super buggy. Okay. Next thing I'll do is, and this is kind of preference, you can do a lot of different things with these flies for legs, but one thing, I take a single piece of olive midge flash, take it, and I tie it in just like that. A little bit of a pin it back just like that. Okay. Now, in a lot of my flies, I'll use 2, kind of double it over, and those will be the legs. But with this, we're going to do a little something different. I'm going to use some mallard flank, and it's the it's kind of like a gold barred look to it, which I kind of think stands out. I like this color. I forget the color. Mallard barred flank wood duck. Okay. So pinch a little piece off, even up the tips, then pin it right in there next to the flash. piece for the other side. Trim it off. Then what I do with this flash here is I trim it just a bit inside the legs, just to give it a little bit of flash coming off the side. Pull that wing case over. And I pull that flash and I sit that flash right in that trough that Baetis makes. Pull it forward. Tie it off a few times. Like that. Trim it. Then I always trim like that. Now, with this, I'm going to take a little bit of the UV Clear Fly Finish Thick by Loon, the best invention since sliced bread, and give it a little bit of what we would call like epoxy wing case just to seal up. And why that cup is important on that Baetis is that Baetis going to really cup that epoxy. Those kind of ridges on the thing, it kind of creates this cup like this, which just nicely holds the epoxy. It doesn't flow out. Whatever you want to use. Hit it with the light. And there you go. Bam, you got the Lil Amigo. Now, again, you can vary all sorts of stuff, change all sorts of stuff about this. You know, colors, whatever. But great alternative to the S&M if your fish are getting hip to that fly. All right, tight lines. Have a good day.
Let the falling rain, 'cause the city ain't no place to hide. Oh, my sister.